It was a sad day for Mr. David's family, Miller, when friends and neighbors gathered to see off a good man on his last journey. It was a shock for everyone when the wolf came up to the coffin and bit a man by the neck. The reasons for this behavior of the wolf turned out to be even more shocking than are. David Miller, an elderly man, lived in Idaho. He grew up in this city and almost never left his, except for the period of military service. After several years of service, he retired and lived alone. Miller lived on the outskirts of the city and often he sat on his porch in the evenings, admiring the sunset. David preferred privacy. He was kind to his neighbors but always kept a certain distance. His only companion was a little boy named Will, who lived in the house next door. David affectionately called him baby and often treated him to sweets. With him, he shared stories about his military exploits, because he was a doctor who helped wounded soldiers on the battlefield after many years of service. In the war, David returned home, but he missed the exciting scenes on the battlefield. So the old man led a quiet life with simple habits. Every morning he got up for a walk, enjoying the fresh air, and then enjoyed a cup of morning tea before spending the day immersed in reading in his porch. Sometimes he went out to chat with the neighbors, and sometimes he just sat watching time slowly pass. People knew him as a quiet man and rarely bothered him. Our story begins with the rumors that spread around the city. Some claimed that wolves roamed the forest nearby. David had also heard these stories and decided to stay away from the forest. That he was not afraid, but he preferred not to join in conflict with wolves or poachers. That he knew he was too weak to run away if something happened, so he didn't want to take any chances. He sat on his porch, feeling deeply satisfied. The old man was convinced that all life, including wild animals, deserved protection. When some of his neighbors decided to hunt wolves in the name of their own safety, he expressed his disapproval. Unfortunately, his opinion was ignored and the hunt continued. One evening, Mr. Miller was sitting on the porch and heard a rustle in his barn. At first he wasn't sure, but he took a flashlight and went to check. What he saw was completely unexpected. A big wolf was sitting quietly among the boxes. Fear took hold of him at first, but then the old man realized that the wolf was not a threat. Later, he saw a gunshot wound on his leg, from which blood was flowing. David looked at the wolf and realized that the animal was too weak to move, let alone jump and attack it. He couldn't let him die like that. When David was about to approach the beast, he heard a noise. Someone was knocking on the door. The wolf growled, and David asked him to be quiet. The old man left the barn, closing the door behind him. 3 young men were standing on his porch. They asked Mr. Miller if he had seen a wolf running past, as he usually sits outside reading a book. Miller replied that he was busy at home and did not notice anything suspicious. The old man carefully opened the door and found the wolf where he had left it. As he got closer, he saw that the wolf was breathing heavily and whining painfully. He seemed to understand that the man wanted to help him. The former doctor examined his leg, extracted the bullet and he bandaged the wound with a clean bandage. Over the next few days, he fed the wolf in the barn and treated the wound. During this time, they developed a deep bond. At night, Mr. Miller would sit down next to the wolf, caressing its fur to make sure it felt comfortable. He was careful that the neighbors did not notice the animal. It was not difficult for a quiet and secluded person. One night, the wolf felt that he had enough strength to stand on his paws. Miller took him into the woods and let him go. The predator hesitated a bit, but then ran away. Every week they met at night in the old man's barn, where he fed the wolf. Over time, his visits became more and more rare, but the meetings never stopped completely. David understood that life was returning to its usual rhythm, and believed that this was how it should be. Miller usually did all the shopping himself, but one restless morning, a few months after his first encounter with the wolf, he felt very tired and asked his young friend Will to help with the shopping. That he wrote a list and handed it to the boy, who went to the grocery store. That he was happy to help his friend and promised to buy everything. When the boy returned, he saw that the old man was lying on the floor and he called an ambulance. Unfortunately, the man was no longer breathing. That he was taken to a local hospital, where he was pronounced dead. The whole city was saddened by the news of the old man's death. Although he spent most of his life alone, he remained a constant support for the neighbors. That he was friendly and helpful to many people, and on the day of his funeral, neighbors and friends gathered to see Mr. Miller off on his last journey. When the farewell words were read over the coffin, suddenly a wolf burst in and ran up to the coffin without touching the man. He just stood motionless next to him for about a minute, and then bit him and ran back into the forest. The surprised people present could not understand what had happened, but then the man abruptly rose from the coffin. People were shocked and couldn't believe it. The doctor, who was among them, explained that the wolf bite actually saved old David's life by opening his airways and easing his suffering. Mr. Miller did not die. In fact, he had anaphylactic shock. That morning he ate French toast with wheat bran, which caused him to have a severe allergic reaction that closed his airways and caused a death-like condition. Unfortunately, little Will was not aware of his friend's allergies. The last time the boy visited the supermarket, he brought the old man this bread, not knowing about his allergies. When David came to, his friends told him what had happened. He was constantly asking about the wolf. A few weeks later, Mr. Miller returned home from the hospital, hoping to see his friend again, and his prayers were answered. On a quiet night, he saw a wolf looking at him from the bushes. He rushed to the wolf and hugged his faithful friend, thanking him for saving his life. The animal gently licked the man's face before running off into the woods. Mr. Miller never saw the wolf again. Both never forgot it. Dear viewers, if you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Goodbye.